Hey guys, welcome to TST Garage. I'm Bart, and in this video I'll be demonstrating the installation of our pod signal kits on Ducati, Panigale, and Street Fighter motorcycles. In front of me I have several different kits. We'll go through what each kit does, what the selections are allowed for you, and then we'll demonstrate how to install them on the bike with the help of our Fender Eliminator kit that's already on there. So in this video, I'll be portraying the steps necessary for mounting these components on a V2 version of the Panigale and Street Fighter motorcycles. So let's begin. On the left side here, your right side, I have two different mounting kits. They will accomplish either outboard mounting, which means the signal goes right on the outside of your license plate frame, or we have an inboard mounting method where the mounting of the signals becomes very narrow and very small form factor, and some guys prefer that because there's less stuff hanging off the bike and it looks more cosmetically pleasing. Choice will be yours. We will equip you with the information on how to install either one with our signals that you see on my right, your left. Here I have the Mech Evo signal. This is a very techie design. It's not meant to be run-of-the-mill. It accentuates some very cool lines in this motorcycle and brings them to the rear and culminates in this very cool looking robot eye type lamp. Then we have a basic one. This is a customer favorite. It's called BL6. It exists in two different variants, sequential and non-sequential. The non-sequential will just give you a regular blink at the flash rate set by the bike, and the sequential will move the lighting, move a light sequence from center to outboard in a sequence for every blink. Then we have our Quadrix signal. It features 4 very high power LEDs firing through a very sophisticated lens array. It is a cool design where we left some space in between here and showed some of the circuitry by just potting it with clear epoxy on the backside. It looks really cool, and if that's your taste, we have them available. Then we have our Echo signals. These are CNC machined anodized aluminum. They come in black with a silver ring here. We do offer separate rings if you like to customize the look. This red looks kind of cool with the red of the bike. That's a pretty easy modification. You unscrew the cap and you change the ring, screw it back on, and you're good to go. Now, we don't recommend any of these signals except for the BL6 with our inboard method. That is because we do need a very slender design to fit in with all of these components so that it doesn't bulk up on you. You ultimately will be able to make your own choice. However, just know these are the only ones that are recommended by us to go with the inboard mounting method. On the outboard method, you basically just get L brackets with the appropriate hardware to get any one of these signals mounted onto the bracket, and then the hardware accomplishes mounting of the chunks onto the bike, onto your Fender Eliminator. Now in the beginning, I did say that we will be mounting these signals on our Fender Eliminator. They are meant to be universally applicable to our Fender Eliminator. I'm sure other Fender Eliminators can also benefit from receiving these lights. However, we don't have the data on what's compatible with our competitors' hardware, so take that with a grain of salt and make your own best decision based on your research. Now, most of the signals on the market nowadays include bullet connectors for connection. These bikes come with JST connectors from the factory on the harness, so we need to do something about that. I don't want you guys having to splice. So we've outfitted you with plug and play harnesses that will connect into the bike and present a means of connection for any of these signals that we provide and any other signals on the market that use the 3.5mm bullet connector, which is 95% of the equipment out there. So when you purchase a kit from us, you'll have the choice of the signal type, the mounting type, and then you will be receiving our plug and play harness. Based on all this information, I will be constructing a chunk for the inboard lighting and then showing how to install it on the bike. And then we'll do the same for the outboard lighting and show you in brief how to get that on the bike. If at any point you have any ambiguity in your understanding of what I'm doing here on the table or on the bike, we do offer these build sheets that have exploded diagrams They are available in the product pages for these products. You'll be able to get on there, download it, print it out for yourself, and this will help you follow along with what I'm doing and cut down on any confusion that you may have. All right, enough talking. Let's grab some tools and let's get to wrenching. A prerequisite to the steps I'm about to portray here is watching the video of the installation of the Fender Eliminator that we have on our YouTube channel and in the product page of that product. Obviously, we are mounting these signals with this product, so you will need to know how to construct the chunks I have on the table here. The closeout is just part of the entire set, but we don't really need to consider it at the moment. We have this chunk that is made up of the hinge bracket and 2 L brackets and some hardware that's holding it together. If you stop yourself during the installation, during the pre-configuration of the Fender Eliminator at this stage, you will be at the proper stage to include the bracket for our inboard signaling system, like so. And then you just use the countersunk screws that hold this entire assembly together in the same manner, just sandwiching our signal bracket in between. The nylock element of the nylock nut goes outward. That is the last part that will engage onto the threads and make sure that the threads are actually locked. I'm going to use a 3mm Allen from the outside, and the inside will be toolless because we have machined a channel into the L bracket that holds the sides of the nut. And this makes this whole installation a lot easier for you. What I like to do is go all the way to the bottom and then back off just a little bit, just to have a little bit of adjustability, because we're going to have to get that bracket to sit center. We're using the innermost holes. There are 3 on each side, so the least wide will be what we need to use. And back off a little bit. I'm gonna get this centered on here. Now we're centering 2 parts about the center line of the hinge bracket. We need to center this guy as it moves independently from the main license plate holding bracket. There are some features like this cutout here, and also visibility of the L bracket through the middle holes. So we could align this all together into a configuration that looks center on both parts. And once you've achieved center to your liking, you just lock down on these screws all the way. And now we have a nice low profile bracket here that will receive our signals. Now, I did mention in the intro that we will be using the BL6 signals. For this installation, I have chosen the sequential ones because to me they look the best. These do have a TST Industries inscription on them, so technically they're side agnostic electrically. However, it looks kind of goofy if you have this upside down and you have to flip yourself to read TST Industries. Choice is yours really, but I like to have it upright, so I'm going to choose this one upright here to be the left side of the bike, and the opposite will be the opposite. Let's remove the hardware from the stud. On the connector end, it's usually easiest to remove one at a time. I'm going to get both sides ready at the same time. All right, so now we feed the connectors through first, through the hole in our signal bracket. Slack milked out, and replace the washer and then the nut. Now using a 13mm wrench, you can just tighten down on this a little bit. We are going to leave a little bit of adjustability and do the final rotation and adjustment and tighten down on the bike. That way we can ensure that the actual center plane of the beam is parallel to the road, and you're actually firing this light in the appropriate direction. I've seen some kits on the market that have a low profile lighting setup that just shoot that light right into space. So we wanted to make sure that this is adjustable. So you can adjust your license plate angle and later adjust the center plane of the beam to actually fire in the direction that you need it to go. All right, so we have this one side constructed. I like to insert the wires through our bracket. There is an area here that bracket has, the hinge bracket has a cutout in it, and we will make use of that to pass the wires through and to the rear portion here so that we could reach the wiring hole of the closeout and get that to the top side like so. I'm going to repeat this same procedure on the other side of the assembly. Let's go ahead and bring the closeout into view, pass those wires through. If you are running a license plate light, I would like to urge you to watch the Fender Eliminator installation video where we portrayed how that is configured and how it routes through and how it connects to the bike. I will not be portraying it in this video for the purpose of the simplicity of portraying these steps in detail. So you would just need to combine the knowledge from the two videos to get that done together. All right, so now this is looking pretty neat. What I like to do is advance the shielding of the wire as much towards the signals as possible so that it hides the inner wires and also shields them from any elements of nature. Okay, I have the shielding forwarded as much as it'll go towards the studs of these signals. Now I'm gonna insert the hinge bracket into the closeout, making this chunk ready to go on the bike. But I do wanna pre-assemble the plug and play wiring harness first. That way, once we get that on the bike, it'll just be plug and plug, shove wires in, get it all mounted in, put some screws in, we're off to the races. This is pretty simple, yellow to yellow, black to black. The plug and play harnesses do offer an insulator cap. However, these things do slide around a little bit. So I will be using some electrical tape. Just have to make sure that they're fully seated. And that means the entire male bullet has penetrated into the female barrel. So now we have the insulator caps over the conductors. For this particular bike, what I like to do is lock them down so they don't slide around and then fold them over like so, and then throw another winding of tape around this bundle as tight as possible, because like I said, on this bike, we need to shove these wires in to where they will be stowed, and doubling them over like this and making them into a nice bundle will permit us to do that very simply. So I want to reiterate just one very, very important part. Before you throw these pieces of tape on, make sure that no conductor is visible from outside of that little shielding. So now I have a nice tight package with a pointy end that won't snag on things when I try to shove it through a couple of geometry features of the bike. So I'm going to repeat the steps on this side with the goal of achieving the same effect. Okay, so we have our Fender Eliminator chunk along with our signal chunk already mounted together. We have our wiring fixed up and ready to go. The remaining screws from the Fender Eliminator components will penetrate through these holes here. And now we're gonna bring that to the bike and continue the installation there. So here on the bike, we've left it open at a stage where we were about to install the Fender Eliminator in the video for the Fender Eliminator installation instructions. You see we have 3 connectors out here. The female socket is for the license plate light, and these outboard ones here are labeled left and right, and those are the signals. Here on our chunk that we will be installing, I have separated the wires right, left. So you just plug them in the appropriate location. Here I actually have them reversed on the bike, but they do have a label, so that's pretty easy to spot. These guys can be tricky to get out of there. You can use a pick or a small screwdriver to dig them out. Once I perform my electrical connections, I like to do a test to make sure I'm not installing components that I will have to remove to correct maybe having the inappropriate signal side. So I have activated the right signal and we are flashing here on the correct side. I'm just gonna test the opposite side, make sure it's flashing, good to go. Okay. So now we're in good configuration here. We will need to do some bulk distribution. And here's the step I was talking about before, where we take these bundles of wires and shove them down through here, through the little mouth looking opening and down to the bottom here. And they will be stowed up above this plastic piece. We are going to stow the actual connections here. So we're gonna just overlap and plunge in with those bundles. And just gotta make sure not to tangle them all up and get enough length of those wires in as to not bulk up here. This is starting to look nice and neat here. Just have to take up a little bit more slack. And it looks like we're pretty much ready to get this mounted in there. So again, like instructed in the Fender Eliminator video, there is a tab here that has been applied to the closeout at the bottom, and it does engage with another piece of geometry here. So we'll need to make sure that that goes up above that lip, and then we push it forward. Once the closeout's in position, we just push on it until it snaps in, like so. Now we insert the bosses from the hinge bracket and get our screws that I demonstrated on the table. Go in here using a 3mm Allen. Gonna engage the thread, not bottom it out just yet. And if you did the right thing with the wiring underneath this whole assembly, then it won't be bunched up and it won't be pressing out on you. And it looks like I did that right. Okay, now I'm gonna bring it all the way to the bottom, tighten it down all the way. All right, so now in the installation video for the Fender Eliminator, we did show you how to adjust the angle of the bracket for the license plate. I already set it at this angle. This is to my liking. If you need to alter that, you crack open the hinges using a 4mm Allen from both sides, adjust it to your liking, lock it down, and then it'll be in position for you. Use that wrench that I used on the table to lock down on these connections here. I did not leave myself very much adjustability here, so it'll likely be necessary to unlock my hinge and rotate this assembly a little bit. But I'm gonna get my signals lined up properly first so that all I'm doing is tightening. So what I'm doing here is getting the surface of the lens perpendicular to the ground, and that will make the center plane of the light beam parallel with the ground. And as long as both sides look the same, I can go ahead and lock that down. So to lock it down, I'm gonna loosen the hinge, rotate this down. Be careful not to strain these wires. If you didn't leave a lot of slack, just be mindful that you might be pulling on these wires and this by rotating it. So just be gentle here. And now I have enough access to tighten down on these nuts. I like to hold the stud, the rubber portion of the stud here, as I turn the nut. That way it doesn't rotate on me. I also try not to overpower the overmolded rubber against the threaded stud. There is a knurled portion in there that you can technically pull out if you pressurize these nuts too much. But all you're trying to do is get enough preload on those threads so that they don't loosen up due to vibration. And the last step here will be to tighten down on the hinge in the previous configuration that gets us that center beam parallel to the ground. Now it's important to note that after this entire assembly, you do not want any contact between the hardware and the plastic parts of the bike, because vibration may cause you to have scratching against that plastic. I've left several millimeters in between everything, so we're looking good. Wiring looks good. I'm gonna throw the license plate on here so that I could demonstrate the fully finished product. I did mention previously that we are not mounting the license plate light in this configuration, just so that we can focus on portraying just the steps for the products we are shooting the video for. If you are running a license plate light, that would live right here and obscure some of the view of this bracket here. It's looking good. Let's give it one more test. Very nice. Very nice. All right, so that'll be that for this configuration. I'm gonna rip this down and show you guys the outboard configuration that houses the signals here. For that purpose, we're gonna use the Quadrix signals just because I wanna portray that installation with something slightly different. For this next presentation, I have returned to this configuration of the Fender Eliminator components, where we have the license plate mounting chunk separate from the closeout. And we also still have the screws that will mount the whole thing to the bike separate. So now we will need to make this sort of a chunk out of each set of components here that will then subsequently mount behind the license plate holding bracket, and the license plate will end up mounting here. I have pre-made this chunk. Here I will show you how to make another chunk out of this Quadrix signal and then use all of these components with the license plate to mount it all together. All right, let's get the washer and nut off of this stud of this signal. Find it easiest to remove one connector at a time. The L bracket has a round hole and a slot. The slot is meant to align with the license plate bracket. The round hole receives the signal. We go from the outer side, not the inner side. The signals themselves are side agnostic. It doesn't matter which side you put them on. They function just as well and look the same on both sides. So then drop a washer on here and then subsequently a nut. It will perform the final tightening on the bike. So for now, we're just trying to make sure that it's not a sloppy situation where it'll just be cumbersome. So I'll get it roughly in the angle that we're going to be hanging it at and then tighten down by hand. Now we have both sides ready to go. So for the physical mounting, we will use the license plate from the outside. The hardware kit for this pod signal mounting kit comes with 6 washers. This is a universal kit. 2 of those washers are meant for a different configuration, so we will only be considering 4 washers, 2 of the locking nuts, and 2 60mm long M6 screws. Stack up will be screw, washer, license plate bracket. To that, we fix one of these signal chunks from the backside, washer, and a nut. If you are running a license plate light needs to be clamped in between the license plate and the bracket during this step. So make sure you go over the video for the Fender Eliminator installation, get your instructions there, and then transfer that step to this portion here. Now I will mount the other side using the same component stack up. If you notice, I'm just doing everything finger tight here. Once we get this mounted on the bike, connected, and it's self-supporting, we will go through the necessary steps to adjust everything, make sure everything's hanging center, level, and the plane of the beam is actually along the ground. Okay. So now we have this chunk ready to go. We will need to feed the wires through the wiring hole in the closeout. Again, too many of these connectors in a bunch will bunch it up for you, so we go one at a time. Now there's several ways to route the wires here. You can go over the top of the hinge bracket and then subsequently like this, and that achieves pretty good hiding the components here. I do like that configuration. An alternate configuration is to, before penetrating the wires and the connectors into the closeout, you get that fed through the channel that is cut into our hinge bracket. That is also a valid choice. Here, let me back up a step and show you guys what that looks like. You will have to make that choice for yourself. So I think I like this configuration quite a bit more. Just looks a little bit neater. Keeps the wires out of view. I'm gonna stick with this one. All right. So at this point, we'll need to do some wiring. It's gonna be very, very simple. However, you do need to consider the fact that the blue wire remains not connected to anything. These signals are running light capable. However, the running light is amber, and for this vehicle the taillight's already really big. Won't be running any additional running lights, so we'll leave that disconnected. For the wiring into our harness, we're gonna go red to black, and then brown into yellow, making sure that they are fully seated. The entire barrel of the male connector is inside the cavity of the female. And then we have these insulator components that slide over each other. They will isolate our conductors from possibly touching each other. However, they do have the tendency to slide around if there is motion in the wire bundle. So what I'm gonna do is lock them down. I do like to lock them down with some electrical tape. First, I inspect and make sure that there is no conductor popping out of the containment here. And then I use a little piece of electrical tape across where the two caps meet each other. All right. Now, one additional step I like to make is to bundle this wire like so. I did portray this in the previous chunk of this video where we installed a different type of signaling configuration. This helps me push the wires up into where they will be resting. So once I get to this point, I'll grab the tape roll and get this tightly wrapped. This will leave me a little point at the leading end so that I don't catch any snags while I feed the wire in. And the rest of it is just making sure that all of my conductors are completely covered and nothing will slip out in any event in the future. Okay, so this is ready to plug in, this is ready to penetrate in and get stowed. I'm gonna repeat the steps on this side, exactly the same as I just showed on the right side. The wiring setup is now complete. Hardware configuration is complete. Let's grab the mounting screws and then get on over to the bike and we'll complete the installation there. All right, the remaining steps here will be fairly easy. Need to locate these two connectors, the two that are similar to each other. Center one here that you see the female is license plate light. If you are running a license plate light, please check out the Fender Eliminator video. Those steps are included in there. Here, these signal connectors do have labels on them, left and right. That one's sitting a little bit deeper in there. You can trace down the connector that's responsible for left and opposite. I will plug them in, test this electrically, make sure that the connection is made and everything is working correctly before we move forward. Left, right. All right, we have proper function. So now we need to do a little bit of bulk distribution. For that purpose, I have made these bundles nice and tight, and the leading area of that is slender so that we can just shove it through and push it down and then distribute it up above this area here. That's a good housing area for those wires. So I have one pushed in. I'm gonna re-stow this connector in its stowing area. There are 3 stowing channels here. And I like to do that because I need to see how much I need to shove down into the void. Now I'm gonna go for the second side here. Perform the same steps. If this binds up on you, you can get in from underneath here with your hand. Gods were good to me here. It was easy for me to do this. So now we have these wires that connect to the actual bike harness connectors. they do overlap and go down into the void, and then the other wires come out of the void and go to the signals. Nice and easy. Just need to manage the length of these so that they don't bunch up in this area and create force on the closeout. Now the closeout does have this tab here that needs to tab over this lip. Once that tabs over, you push it down onto that feature, and then this should just snap into place. Beautiful, nice and easy. Now we just need to forward those wires in there until these bosses can sit in the counter bores of the closeout. Now we grab the mounting screws for this configuration, along with a 3mm Allen hex key. And start fastening. Be careful finding the thread. It is an M5. Okay, I'll engage one, move over to the other one. Once both are engaged, just make sure that the wiring is pleasing to the eye. Don't have any weird sections showing. And now I'm gonna tighten down all the way. All right. So now, the angle of these signals will be dependent on the angle of your license plate. I'm gonna unlock the hinge here using a 4mm Allen. I'm gonna set the angle to where I want it to be. This right here looks good to me. I'm gonna tighten down on that connection all the way, making sure that it has enough torque on it so vibrations don't loosen it. Now, we did leave this finger tight, so let's first level and center everything here and tighten down on this bolted connection. I'm going to use a 10mm wrench from the backside and a 4mm Allen from the outside. Put a little bit more friction between these surfaces so I can adjust. All right, so now this is sitting level. I'm going to tighten down on it all the way. All right, and the last step here is to ensure that the center plane of the light beam is parallel with the ground. So the lens surface must be perpendicular with the ground for that to happen. Do that to both lamps, and then I'm going to grab a 13mm open-ended wrench and tighten down on the nuts that take care of fixing the signals to the L brackets. All right, they do have a rubber stud, a rubber overmolded stud that protrudes out and has the threads on it. If you overpower that connection, you'll rip out the stud from the rubber. So what we're looking for here is to just have enough friction so that vibration doesn't move this component around. So you just tighten down until it preloads, and then when you mush it around with your hand, it doesn't move on you, and then that's fine. That's the end of it here. And at this point, we can test it one more time, make sure everything's good to go. Right is operating properly, left is operating properly. For this configuration, we do offer several different signal types like you saw on the table. I just chose this one to demonstrate this installation. But you could use the Echo BL6 or the Mech Evo. Now, I have 2 more screws to replace here. In a previous step, we had this panel still open in a way. So I will now get those screws in and finalize this, and the job will be complete. All right guys, that's pretty much it for this job. I'm pleased with how it came out. I hope you found the video informative and helpful. I do want to note that although I portrayed this installation on the V2 Street Fighter, this exact procedure applies to the V2 Panigale as well. Same steps, bike looks just a little bit different in the front, in the rear, it's exactly the same. I want to thank you guys for watching. I'd like to hear from you, so hopefully you'll find some time to leave me some comments, good, bad, ugly, whatever you got, send it my way. I always appreciate it. And if you're in the market for some cool parts for your Ducati or other bikes you may have in your stable, check out tstindustries.com. We have a whole bunch of parts ready to go, shipped from our Florida warehouse to you. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got. Thank you for watching again. See you later.